Hello, and welcome to WinEdge Analytics Top 10 Major League Baseball teams for Week 10. And we will get it started today with the same team that was in the number one spot last week. That is the San Diego Padres. Padres sit with an 11.60 A grade for the season, but only went 4-3 last week, which only then gave them a grade of a 7.10 C grade. So not a great week for the San Diego Padres. As we move ahead, the number 2 team for the week, remain number 2 again for this week, is the Los Angeles Dodgers. Although they sit with a A grade 11.47, they were 2-4 last week, so not a good week. They managed to have a decent performance in those 2 wins and in the 4 losses as well. So they managed to grade out a 7.15 C grade. We'll get to some of that later. In the 3rd spot is the Chicago White Sox, up 1 position from 4 last week to 3 this week. They had a great week, going 6-1, 21.32 A grade, which was the 2nd best performance of any team this week, with the only exception to that being the number 4 team this week, up 2 positions, the Tampa Bay Rays. Rays were 5-1 for the week, and on that week, that put them with a grade of a 21.69 for the week, a big-time A grade, the best score for the week, and they sit at an 11.16 A grade for the season. In the 5th spot is the New York Mets. They went 4-1 for the week. That was good enough for 15.00 A grade. They sit with a 10.77 A grade on the season, and so they've played well. The New York Yankees fell 3 positions to number 6 this week after going 1-5. That was a bad week for the Yankees. They still managed to be in the top 6, also still managed to have an A grade for the season with a 10.67. But the bad part about this is they had an F week. They played really bad, basically as bad as the Colorado Rockies have played all season. And that's saying a lot for a big franchise like the Yankees to have a 3.11 F grade for the week. In the 7th spot, the San Francisco Giants. They went 5-1 on the week. They moved up 1 position, jumping in front of the team that's sitting in 8th, and we'll get to in a second. The Giants are the first team to have a B grade. This at the top of the B list. They have a 10.27 score for the season. In that 8th spot, falling the 1 position, is the Boston Red Sox, pretty much because they didn't play a lot of games. They only played 4 games last week, won 3 of the 4, had an A grade score of 13.11, but that wasn't good enough because of the Giants' 18.73 for the week, jumped ahead of them. Like I said, some of that may have had to do with the Red Sox missing games, not playing 7 games this week. So they sit on the season with a 10.05 B grade and have now dropped 1 position down to 8th this week. The Milwaukee Brewers remain our 9th team. They were 9th last week as well. They went 5-2. That was good enough to score them a 16.03 A grade for the week and push them up to a 9.82 B grade on the season. And rounding out the top 10, the Toronto Blue Jays. They moved up 1 spot from 11th and to get into our top 10 this week. They only went 4-3, but they still had an impressive week because they put up a 13.48 A grade for the week, pushing them up to a 9.07 B grade for the season. Now let's recap all of this on one screen. Now, as you can see on our full board, the Padres and the Dodgers didn't have the best week, as they both were C grades last week, almost identical scores to be exact, and they were not the best teams. Followed behind by the Chicago White Sox and the Tampa Bay Rays, who were the two best teams last week. They proved that by moving up 1 and 2 spots respectively, and that is they were the teams that had the best score, best grades for the week, and managed to not only jump over the Mets, but they moved the Yankees down, and the Yankees moved themselves down, as you can see there, because they had the F grade, the only F grade out of the top 10 teams this week, and that F grade moved them way down, barely keeping them with an A score in the top 6 at that 10.67. In 7th, there is the San Francisco Giants, as we mentioned, the third best team this past week as far as their week and their score with their 18.73 A grade. Was enough to move them up the 1 spot. Like I said earlier, it jumped them ahead of the Red Sox because the 18.73 really was a lot. As you can see, they're leading the Red Sox now by about just over 0.2 of a point in their season score of 1027 to 1005. But when you look at the last week, you can see the big week by the Giants moved them ahead of the Red Sox. Like I said earlier, Red Sox didn't play a full week of games. That may have affected them as well. Down in 9th, the Milwaukee Brewers, they had a really outstanding week with that 1603 A grade score, and that moved them to a 9.82 season grade of a B. And rounding out the top 10 is the Toronto Blue Jays. As I mentioned, they also had an A grade score for the week, and they are now into the top 10 with a plus 909 B grade. And our biggest riser for the week, the Chicago Cubs. They moved up 5 spots this week to the 12th spot. All the way from 17 to 12, they're trying to break into the top 10 here. Maybe watch out for them next week if they have another week like they just had this past week, gaining 5 positions, and as I mentioned, up to number 12. 2 biggest fallers for the week were the New York Yankees, as I mentioned earlier, down 3 spots, and the Baltimore Orioles also down 3 spots this week. And those 2 teams did not have a good week. Fortunately, they weren't playing each other, so they couldn't help by beating on one another. Somebody could come out of it ahead, but in this case, both teams had the biggest fall. Yankees fell from 3 to 6, and the Orioles fell from 24th last week to number 27 this week. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and then also like us on Facebook as well. We'll be back again next week with our top 10 in Major League Baseball from WinEdge. Have a great week.